Our health news, federal health officials, they're warning that a drop in vaccinations in the U.S. may have led to an increase in pediatric flu deaths. Jared Hill has our story.
Ready?
Amanda Roost loves a good fall day at the park with her kids, but she says preparing for flu season is serious business.
We're traveling, we're going to be exposing them to all different kinds of people in different scenarios. We are subjecting them to that. I feel like we're kind of responsible for getting them covered.
Federal health officials are getting the word out that flu vaccination can be life-saving for children, and now is the time to do it. The CDC reported nearly 200 children died from the flu last season. Most were eligible for the flu vaccine, but did not receive one.
I think, unfortunately, coming out of the COVID pandemic, we have seen a rise in vaccine skepticism, people less willing to get vaccinated. And as we've seen with the pediatric flu vaccines, that has led to increased hospitalizations as well as, unfortunately, some deaths.
The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends everyone 6 months and older get the annual flu vaccine. But the uptake was down last year. Just 54% of kids got vaccinated.
Sometimes, say before Thanksgiving, say mid-November, you want to get your flu shot, your COVID shot. But that said, whenever you can get it done, you should get it done, even if it's a bit earlier than that.
Children under 5 are at high risk for flu complications, as well as older adults, pregnant women, people with underlying conditions like asthma, diabetes, and heart disease, and the immunocompromised.
My kids who can sustain it can contribute more to keeping the flu at bay.
They're protecting themselves and their community. Jared Hill, CBS News, New York.
Now, the FDA just announced the Flumist nasal spray vaccine will become the first self-administered flu vaccine that can be done at home. The vaccine is not expected to be available for this upcoming flu season, and doctors say that the vaccine is not as effective as the traditional flu shot historically. Well, in more health news, a new Harvard study is finding that a little more than a third of former pro football players surveyed say they believe they have CTE. Now, the study published today in the Journal of American Medicine collected data from 1,980 former football players who played from 1960 to 2022. About 34% of those players reported perceived CTE, which is a degenerative brain disease, which is believed to be caused by repeated head injuries. Those players who reported having CTE also reported an increased prevalence of suicidality and were more likely to have health problems associated with cognitive impairment. Also to comment, your news ad for a North Dakota man will spend almost a year behind bars after pleading guilty to several charges after threatening to shoot his family members. We'll have those details. Plus, meteorologist Joseph Williams will also give us a look at our forecast.